section number 4.
I
hands for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you that you will be here today. And as we have our session, we pray that you be with us, and that you speak with us, and that we learn that in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
I'll just use a handheld. Okay.
You know, one of the great blessings to the entire church, wherever I've gone in my ministry, I've been involved in a formal ministry with young adults for over 30 years, is when you see the vibrancy and the joy of your young people, you can't help but smile. Is that true? Now, I have some serious concerns about some of our older members. Your skills in charades is very poor. You're going to have to work on that a little bit, okay? But what a wonderful thing to see all generations working together towards a collaborative goal, not just for fun during AY, but for the sake of the cause of Christ. Amen? Amen. If you have the handouts, we're moving on to our next section here, that's giving focus to this idea that may be a little bit foreign to some of us because we were brought up in the church in a certain way. Oftentimes, if we're a really good church, it is thought that you not only have programs for the adults, where the adults are doing adult things, but then you have programs for the children, where the children are doing children things. But too often in our culture, and I'm going to break it down straight to the premise of this presentation, if you carry that to its illogical conclusion, you end up with groups of individuals that are in the same church but have no relationships with one another. Have you seen this happen? Yes. Where the teenagers are only hanging with the teenagers, and if you're a really, really up-to-date church, you have a youth room, preferably somewhere in the basement where they can make as much noise as they want and not bother anyone. But once they grow out of that stage, they grow out of the church because they have no other relationships. So it just warms my heart to see, even here during your retreat time, that it's not just the young people off in the woods somewhere and the adults doing their own thing, the people that are the Ilocanos in their own little group, and the Visayans in their own little group, and the Tagalogs in their own little group, because I've seen even language groups separate out so much that we don't see the family of God convening and enjoying each other's company. The reason that this has been such an important facet, and I've shared with you some research, in fact, if you'll do me the kind favor, inside of the exterior folder, there's some booklets I'd like to give away. I mentioned to you some of the courses that I've offered here are also available online. I'd like to just give a couple of things away, so Dee, if you'll hand me that black folder. There are some of you already that said, oh, you know, Pastor Marting, he did an okay job with the presentation of this material, but I know that I could do that much better than him. So I'm wanting to encourage you to go ahead and do that. So today, if you're saying to yourself, you know what, I'm making it a mental point in my home church or with my youth leaders in my conference to present some of this material, I'd like to give you a copy of the hard copy workbook for Next Steps, which was the material which we went over Sabbath morning, okay, this morning, all right? I'm going through with you this afternoon some new material that's based on the most recent research that we've been collaborating with. We collaborated with Barna Group about 2 or 3 years ago. Most recently, I've started a relationship with Fuller Youth Institute, the institute to which Dr. General and I were part of the seminary there. But they've done some fascinating work that I'm going to share with you this afternoon. But in order for this to be a meaningful experience, I need to find out, is there anyone here that has peanut allergies? So, there's some people that have peanut allergies? Okay, if you have peanut allergies, just be completely aware here. But this idea of helping and supporting one another is very important. So this is what I'd like to do. I would like to, first off, have all of you stand up, please. Everyone go ahead and stand up. Yeah, if I ask you to stand up anymore, you're going to feel like this is a Pentecostal or Catholic church. Right? All right, everyone standing? Okay, because it's been a full day and you've been in sessions all day, I want to be very respectful and do something scriptural. This is the middle right here. Everyone move towards the middle of this room here. Go ahead and move towards this middle area. Be shoulder to shoulder with the person next to you. And shoulder to shoulder with the person next to you. Very good. Everyone ready? Yeah, shoulder to shoulder with the person next to you. There you go. Very good. At the count of 3, I'm going to ask everyone to turn towards their right. 1, 2, 3. Turn towards your right and massage the shoulders of the person in front of you, please. Be nice. Be nice. Massage. Work out the kinks. Wake them up. Don't hurt them. Don't hurt them.
The best. The best, man.
Very good. Wake them up. All right. And stop. Everyone face forward. Face forward. Okay. At the count of 3, I'll have you turn towards your left. 1, 2, 3. And do unto others as they have done unto you.
More, man. They can give you more. Right? Yeah.
Very good. Nice. Nicely done. All of you have a future as masseuses, I can tell. Go ahead and have a seat. It's important for us to remember that the theme for today is what matters most.
Oh, yeah?
And if I was to ask you a Bible Bowl or an egg white afternoon quiz, I hope you would have the right answer. If you were able to see Jesus today, he was roaming around with his young posse, hanging with him. And us as religious leaders say, what? Why is he hanging out with them? Those sinners, those young people. I'm certain that we would be able to answer that question. Hopefully Jesus would not have to tell us the 3 stories. But let me ask you the quiz question. If you were able to go up to Jesus and you would ask him the question, what matters most to you, Jesus? What would he say? Anyone? Would he say that the 7th day is the Sabbath? That's the most important thing? It's important, but is it the most important thing? Would he say your offering is the most important thing? Your behavior. Oh, it must be your behavior. Whether you're vegan or vegetarian, even though you eat tapa every so often, would he say that that's important? I would dare say that Jesus would say, the most important thing, what matters most, why I came to this earth, was to seek and save the lost.
Amen.
Now here's the part that's going to be really important for you. For many of you, you were brought up in the church, or you have decades of experience in the church. But you'll have to let and help next generations understand what this all means. So I'm just going to give you a short illustration here. I'm wondering if I have someone that's over the age of 30 that's here. Anyone that's over the age of 30 that's here? All right, Mario, go ahead and come on up. Let's have a round of applause for Mario. Okay, so I want you to begin in your mind to begin to think, if I'm not over 30 years old, if I'm a young person, how do I help the Bible to come to life? How do I help younger generations understand what the scriptures are about? And so I'm going to ask Mario to do communion for you all. Okay? I'm just going to combine it all together so I can mess with your mind, because I'm the preacher that leaves town and you'll have to ask the theological questions of your pastor. Okay? Alright, so Mario, this is your goal. Today you're going to be doing communion. And basically, you're going to go up to whoever you want, making sure that they don't have peanut allergies. And you're going to serve them. Okay? All right? And what I've done is I've gone to, it's very nice here. I went to a Costco, it's only a few miles away. And I got a bulk size of trail mix. And I know some of you have to eat on regular intervals, otherwise you can't pay attention. Okay? So while I am sharing with you the Growing Young Adventist thing, Mario is going to serve you communion. Now, before he begins to do this and he begins to serve you, what is the point here? Is this unleavened bread? No. Is this grape juice?
No.
No. But what is the point of communion and foot washing? Humility, right? What else? When Jesus put the cloth around him, what did he do? He said to everyone, if you're going to be first in the kingdom, what do you have to be willing to do? You have to be willing to serve, right? All right? So Mario is going to start by serving someone. However, once he's served that someone, he has to pass this on to someone else. The person that he served now has to serve someone else. Does that make sense? Now, what is the principle being shared there? Discipleship, right? So that what he does, someone watches what he does, he serves them, and then that person serves the next person, okay? So for those of you that are attention deficit, this presentation is going to be very upsetting to you. Some of you will be listening to me, some of you will be watching what Mario is doing, and others of you will be daydreaming as you look at the beautiful water line. And that's perfectly okay, all right? So Mario, here is your service. Here is peanut allergy people, please be aware, but he's going to start serving, okay?
They get a water too?
Oh no.
Oh no,
just that. He's going to give you full service here. All right. The Lord has come here with the intention of sharing with us what matters most. And I'll be honest with you. For me, I'll show you what matters most. That's what matters most. For me. Okay? So if you ask me what matters most, I will say that my daughter matters most. I will share with you also that this is the defined reality for the entire Seventh-day Adventist Church. Our responsibilities as leaders is to make sure we are not in denial, but we are reality-based ministry. We are not denying the realities that we face in this world. So, if I was to be honest with you, across the North American Division, the landscape of the United States, once our young people graduate from high school, many of them graduate from church. The Fuller Youth Institute calls that they drift away from church. This is the reality, okay? In addition to this reality, there is no major Christian tradition in the North American Division in which Protestants are growing in the United States. If you look carefully at the research, the Pew Research, there is a slight tick up. There's a slight growth pattern in the Adventist Church, okay? But before we get so happy about ourselves, why is there that slight growth pattern? It's transfer growth. In other words, immigrants that are coming to the United States that are Seventh-day Adventists are helping us, as opposed to declining in regards to our membership. There's a slight uptick because of transfer membership, okay? Immigrant growth. But the reality is that there's no Christian tradition in the United States that's growing. Another thing, maybe you've heard it on National Public Radio, there is this group of individuals that have been identified or coined as nuns. Have you heard of this? It's not nuns, N-U-N-S, okay? It's not the Catholic nuns. But it's the individuals, when they get a census report and there's a variety of checkpoints in regards to religious affiliation, there are individuals that say, I don't check anything for my religious affiliation. This group is gradually growing from last year to this year. That group has grown from 16%. Let's say I have no religious participation or affiliation to 23%. And here's the part that's a travesty, but it's the reality that we're seeing across our American landscape. That as far as the population is concerned, our young adults are about 17% of the population. But when you look at actual attendance in the local church, it's 10% and lower. So again, thank you, Pastor Allan, for sharing us all this happy news. We're so grateful that you came here to the Pacific Northwest just to depress us. But what if I were to share with you? What if I was to tell you that isn't the entire story? That there's more to this story, and for me personally, being involved in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, a lifelong Adventist minister coming from the third generation of ministers in my family lineage, I want to say in my heart, across the United States, Canada, Bermuda, Micronesia, and Guam that make up the North American Division, I can attest that there are churches out there that I believe are growing young, that are vibrant, that are spending the afternoon playing telephone with a twist, that are building relationships that will last for the rest of eternity. When I say growing young through the rest of this presentation, I want you to think of this, and this hope that I'm holding. Growing young is talking about churches that aren't shrinking and aging, but are growing and involving and retaining young people ages 15 to 29, which brings overall vitality to the whole church. Okay? I believe, and maybe I'm biased, but from what I've observed here, I believe that Greater Seattle Filipino American Seventh-day Adventist Church is one of those growing young churches.
Amen.
You may not be doing it completely on your own intentionally. It may be somewhat serendipitous, but I saw it during the worship service. This young lady here was listening to the worship music, and she saw a couple of young boys, and she did not hesitate to push those young boys into leadership. Did you see it during the worship service? The young boys hesitated, and they started to back away to kind of hide from everyone. But she was insistent. She goes, "Oh, come here." She brought them all the way up here to the front. She wanted them to come up to the pink microphone. They didn't want to get anywhere close to it because it was nuclear. But the entire church is blessed by that type of vitality, that desire to see young people actively involved. So let me share with you, because I know there's a lot of stereotypes, and for those of you that have seen our broadcasts for YG Church, you may say, "Oh, there's no way we can be that way, the way that those young people are in that church. We're just a Filipino American church, and we can't do the things that other churches are doing to attract young people." Well, let me share with you the most recent research. These are qualities your church does not need in order to grow young. Number one, you don't have to be a certain size church. All size churches, if they're intentional, can grow young. Number two, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. You don't have to be in a metropolitan area. You can be in the country. Any church can grow young. This is what the research is showing. They took a look at over 200 churches that were referred to them from all over the country. They asked the question, what are the churches that are drawing young people and are attracting next generations? You don't have to be a certain part of the country. You don't have to be a certain age. Your church doesn't have to be super old or super young. You don't have to be a part of a certain denomination. You don't have to have a cool youth pastor or a cool quotient. Don't worry. Pastor Ed is not going to start wearing skinny jeans when he preaches. You don't have to have a cool quotient to it. Another things that you do not have to have, you don't have to have a modern building, you don't have to have a big budget, you don't have to have, this is a big misnomer in many Adventist circles, you don't have to have even contemporary worship music. Now, don't get me wrong, Having music that young people resonate with is very important, but it's not necessary in order to grow young. You don't have to have watered down teaching. Some people believe, oh, you know, the young people just want to hear a little bit of, you know, just a nice idea and thought. Have lots of games, have pizza, have a fun time, but don't make it heavy. The young people are telling them, no, we want to be able to deal with what the Bible is saying to our lives today. We want theological texture to what's being shared. We want the Adventist understandings of not only our heritage, but what we have to say to our peers, both Christian and agnostic. Don't water down your message. And you don't have to have a hyper-entertaining program in order to attract them. So, if you don't have to have these things, as the Fuller Youth Institute was taking a look at what were the characteristics, what were the principles that these churches had that were drawing young people in, they came to and basically narrowed down to 6 commitments. And here are the 6 commitments. Number 1, it's important to have keychain leadership. Okay? Now when we say keychain leadership, that's basically the idea. I don't know, maybe you've seen this before. Have you had a church leader that has all the keys to the church? Right? Kind of like and they have that key ring on the side. And if they have it on their side, they have all the keys to the church. And they have the key ring on a chain. And if you say, excuse me, church leader, adult, can I have the key to the gymnasium? They say, okay, I'll give you the key to the gymnasium. Just fill out this application. Let me do a background check on you. And they give you the key for just a moment so you can open up the gymnasium. But the moment you open up the gymnasium, they put their hip back and it comes back to them. There are some churches where all the power, which is exaggerated in my illustration here of a key hoarding leader, is with 1 or 2 people. And they don't share that leadership with others. In a growing young church, keychain leadership is offering to the next generation the opportunity to take valuable leadership, not just in youth programs, but in every aspect of the church. Empathizing with today's young people. There are 5 curse words that you can learn today in order to repel all the young people from your church. You say these 5 curse words, oftentimes, even if they're still being polite and still in your presence, they have completely turned off to what you're saying. So if you want to turn off young people, say this to start any sentence. When I was your age. Right? You don't have any rapport with them, you're going to tell them how it was in the olden days. So if you want to stop conversation with young people, just go up to them and say, when I was your age, and they will cut you off at the knees. But if you want to build a relationship with young people, there are 3 golden words that you can say that will build trust, that will help you to understand where they're coming from. And those 3 golden words are, tell me more. Leadership in our church begins with listening. Too often we thought that leadership meant that we get to lecture everyone. But in the churches that are drawing young people and are growing young, adults are intentionally empathizing with today's young people and the reality of what they're experiencing. Right? I'm going to ask some of you. Do some of you remember that when you wanted to make a call, you had to go to a phone and put your finger in a circle? Does anyone remember what rotary is? Some of your young people don't even have any idea what that is. In the same way that they don't know what it was like before, you don't know. You do not know the type of power that lays in their fingertips today. If anything, we need to spend a little bit of time understanding what our young people are going through. Another commitment, take Jesus' message seriously. That means we are going to have to figure out, in the midst of all the things that we believe, how Jesus fits into it. Next commitment is feel warm community. I think you guys just do this naturally, right? It's part of the characteristics of your church. So it's one of the areas that you could naturally celebrate. Prioritize youth and young families everywhere. By your own chronological age, you are going to grow old, okay? But if you give emphasis to the young people in your church, it allows that vibrancy to continue to refuel you and allow you to experience the vitality that young people bring. Be the best neighbors. We talked about that a little bit earlier today in regards to being compassionate. And then further, where is your church located? Is it located in a suburban area? Does your neighbors know what goes on inside of your church building other than filling up the parking lot on Sabbath? Be the best neighbor not only to those people overseas, but to the people and the community that surrounds you. These are the ideas by which you can grow young. This is a diagram that did not make it into your handout, unfortunately, because of the color translation, but I'll be happy to send that to you as a PDF. You'll notice here that anywhere in the cycle of growing young, that you can grow old. You can jump off the cycle and grow old. We all naturally will grow older. Now, there's nothing wrong necessarily with growing older, but it's important for us to understand that if we want the vitality of our church to continue to go on, we have to continue to seek out those opportunities to build those relationships with young families and teenagers. Now, with all of that I've shared with you here, it must be contextualized. This is not a recipe that works for everyone, so you have to make it work for your situation. If we were to talk about brisket, that would not make sense to you, but in Texas, brisket is very popular. So here I will talk about papa and pancit and lumpia. Same thing with these principles. In order to be a warm community, you must be in your own skin. You can't wear someone else's skin, and you need to contextualize it. And then further, what I would share with you, before you think that taking Jesus seriously is only one component here, the whole growing young component is built off of this understanding that Jesus came here with the idea of seeking and saving the lost. Okay? All right, so we've gone through the principles, we've given you all this information. Now, I want to share with you just a couple of illustrations of how this is playing out. In a recent sermon series that I did at my church, I asked all of our young people that were leaders to come up to the front. And I wanted to illustrate to them keychain leadership. So they came up to the front. You see the lovely lady there behind me. And as they came up to the front, I had them pick up from my table a key. Okay? Now, I'll share this with you. There's all kinds of hardware stores all over the area in Greater Seattle. Go to those hardware stores and ask them for their flawed keys. Okay? So basically, when they're cutting keys, they may commit a mistake. They'll have a box of free keys that don't open anything. All right? I had all my leaders for my young adult ministry to come to the very front. They came to the front, they picked up a key, and during the church service, as we talked about keychain leadership, I asked each one of those leaders to go up to someone that was younger than them and pass to them the key. So they would take the key and give it to someone. This is imaginary. Just pretend I'm giving you a key, right? Now imagine that moment. Number one, for a young adult, all the people that are up front there seem fairly young, right? But now in their mind, because they are the church, they have a responsibility as a leader to pass on leadership to the next generation, right? So they pass the key to someone that's younger than them. But also imagine if you were sitting in her chair. There is this cool young adult, or this older adult, or this elder that is coming up to her and giving her the key to the church. A very symbolic moment by which she understands, I'm not just simply here to consume information, I am here to make a difference and take on leadership. Now, one of the most important and most valuable things that we do at our church that I think is a wonderful illustration of growing young is this moment here. We have a food pantry. I'm assuming you all have some form of community service, but in our church we have a food pantry. You'll notice here I'm doing a baby dedication. This is little Elijah. And there's a young lady there, I think in kind of the bluish dress to my left, that is her mother. When we do our baby dedications, we typically ask the family to come forward to lay hands on the baby and on the mother as part of our baby dedication. Do you notice there's something strange about this picture? All the people in this picture aren't the same color as the mother. All the people in this picture are different colors and different ages. And I'll let the mother tell a bit of the story. If you'll bring up the volume a little bit, I'd love for you to hear her story.
Hi, my name is Allan. I am 21. I'm a junior at the University of North Texas. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in many homes. I know what it's like to live with a lot of children and few children. I was also abused in my adopted family. And I found myself in a situation that was out of my control, and I chose to leave. And being sexually harassed is something that I feel is like a generational thing that was happening in my family, and so I knew that my only choice was to leave. I ended up in my car, and at this point I'm 5 months pregnant, and I have this child. I'm failing in my pregnancy, and I'm severely dehydrated, severely malnourished while I'm pregnant, and I'm still going to school at this time, but during the daytime, the commute to school was pretty hot since I didn't have air conditioning. And so I still went to class on time. I still made a full point of that semester. And I went to the food pantry one day. I was just looking up resources. And at the food pantry, I met so many people. One person, to be exact, I go very closely to Denise. She pretty much just helped me cope. And it was the first time I think I talked to anyone about my issue. Of course, I had to tell her my needs, and it was very weird for me, but it was something I needed to do because I knew that I needed help. And I just had to stop running. And so finally, I got the help I needed, and I'm still in school. I'm a junior. I have a healthy baby boy. He was born 6 pounds, 12 ounces. I found God at the hospital. I had just given birth to Elijah. And I just knew that I wanted a better life for him. And I just had a conversation with God, and I just said, I prayed over Elijah, and I prayed that I would be emotionally stable and financially stable, and just overall able to give him the life that I want him to have. And having dedicated, I knew that right when I gave birth to him, that's something I wanted to do. I actually spoke to a lot of people about it before it happened, and it was awesome. And now I'm about to be baptized, and I'm ready. Life now is better. That's all I can say. I'm thankful for another breath. I'm thankful for my child's health. I'm just thankful for the simple things, things that I just ignored before, because some people, they would get another day and there was once a moment that I was fighting for my life, and I'm alive, and I think that's the best testimony anyone has, is just being able to have another day. I'm Delandra, and I'm 19.
Now, I need to share with you that Delandra is very modest. When she came to our food pantry, and she says that it was hot in her car, you have to understand a couple of things in context. Number one, she had to leave her home because of sexual abuse. Okay? So for a period of time, Delandra, who was a student at the University of North Texas, was living out of her car, pregnant. And I know because you're enjoying this lovely weather here in the Pacific Northwest that you don't understand that Texas is probably the closest you'll get to hell ever in your entire life. In this triple-digit weather inside of Texas, she is living out of her car and she's pregnant, commuting her way over to the University of North Texas campus. Because our church, and we didn't know Delandra, decided to be the best neighbors and build a partnership with a local food bank to be a food pantry or a select food pantry for the community, Delandra found our church members as part of this food pantry. The individuals that surrounded her during the dedication of her baby are volunteers inside of that food pantry. In fact, one of the ladies there took it upon herself for a temporary period of time to give Delandra a job, to help her get on her feet. Delandra had a healthy baby boy. His name was Elijah. We dedicated that baby boy, and just a couple of weeks following, we had an opportunity to give Delandra an opportunity for new birth herself with baptism. Now, this young lady is it's just amazing to me that God would allow us to be a part of her story. When she says she's doing all right in school, she was homeless, pregnant, living in her car, at times so dehydrated to the point that she was getting sick, and she was pulling off a 4.0 in her classes. And do you want to know what she decided to dedicate her life towards in regards to her vocation? In a couple of, I think it's probably this year or next year, she's going to graduate with her degree in social work. Amen. So that she can help other people. In these simple ways by which your church will decide to engage, to enlist your influence, your resources to grow young, it can make a powerful difference in our world. Growing Young Adventists is a learning journey encouraging our church to love next generations well. We want to cheer, support, and resource congregations who desire the vitality of young people and the great relationships they bring. I'm so impressed with your union, the North Pacific Union. To date, they have invested over $200,000 to support churches that want to grow young. I am hoping that you will be one of those churches that will do this intentionally. Now, all of us are being kind, I know. All of us are being Christian, I know. But the churches that are growing young are the ones that are doing this on purpose. As I go through here, just to the little reason, I want to give you the real reason why this is so important to me and why I am so passionate about young adults and churches that are growing young. I have a daughter, as you probably have heard multiple times today. However, this daughter of mine has decided to date a boy. You know, boys. She's decided to date a boy, and she's been dating this boy for 4 years. All right? I'll resume that thought in just a moment, but it shudders my mind that she likes this boy, because I'm the only boy she's supposed to like. But with a church that grows young, very early on, they take on these characteristics. When Dee and I were in Florida, we did a church plant. And I'm not sure if some of you remember, but I can't remember what year that was, love, but there was a hurricane that came through. It was called Hurricane Charlie. It was one of 3 hurricanes that came through Central Florida. My daughter was, how old here, love? She's 6 years old. She's a part of our church plant. She sees what's happening on the TV, that Charlie is literally ruining people's lives. We have many people living in mobile homes. If you've ever been through a hurricane, it's very devastating to the local community. My daughter says, I want to help the people that got hurt by Hurricane Charlie. We say, okay, sure, we'll help you. Well, what would you like to do? I would like to sell lemonade. So our little daughter decided she was going to sell lemonade. She made a poster. We gave her a little bucket. And he said, instead of charging for each one, just ask them for donations. And so she was at the side of the road where we were church planting in our community there in Celebration, Florida, and she was asking for donations. Well, the local foundation, Celebration Foundation, one of the entities in the community, heard that there was a variety of things that were going on, that people were doing fundraising for hurricane relief. And they said, we would match the monies that are raised. So my daughter's there on the side of the road because she wants to be the best neighbor for all the victims of Hurricane Charlie. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think the lemonade was that good anyway. It was some of that powdered stuff that we probably found in one of our cupboards, and so we poured it in there. It was probably awful lemonade. But there she is on the side of the road, people stopping by, getting the free lemonade and donating to the cause. By the time she was done selling lemonade, she brought the money over to our foundation community center, and I think $300 was donated to the Red Cross to help hurricane victims.
Amen.
Very early on in her life, it was made a part of her DNA to be the best neighbor. However, I had the ability to control the church plant. Okay? As she was growing up, she grew up in our church in Texas before she went off to college. I had the ability to control younger generation church and make sure it was a part of our culture, to put Jesus at the center of everything, to develop key chain leadership, to offer our church as being the best neighbor to those around us. But doggone it, she likes a boy. And I don't know where she will take this boy, because it probably will not be in my church. I don't know where their future together might go, but if they have a future together and it's not at my church, I want to make sure that it's at a growing young church. Does that make sense? That's why I'm so passionate about this. To further this story of this little 6-year-old, her DNA is such that it's no longer something that it requires her to go to a place to attend church. It's now part of her DNA, so that she feels as if she is the church. And so this little girl that was raising funds at 6 years old went on to Southern College. And I have a little clip to share because I'm a proud dad, and you're going to have to endure it.
Jen and I were scrolling through Instagram during class one day and saw a picture of a bunch of elderly in a nursing home up to waist in water after Hurricane Harvey had hit Houston. And we had been hearing about the disasters that had been going on down there, but we didn't realize how bad they were until we saw that image. And after we saw that, we realized that we needed to do something.
The main purpose of this event was just to raise money as best as we could. We didn't have any set amount in mind. It was like we need to do something.
But we titled our event Hurricane Relief Benefit, and we had multiple activities going on the day up. The biggest draw for people to come was to sell baked goods, and we involved the community by encouraging them to not only come and purchase baked goods, but to also bake items and bring them to the event to sell to others. We also invited blood assurance to come out. They brought a huge blood mobile, and individuals were allowed to donate blood during this time, and that blood also went to hurricane victims.
We sold t-shirts made by Casey. She's one of our art students.
We also had live music at the event as student musicians, alumni, CA students, and current Southern students all came and performed. We raised around $3,700, and over 70 people donated blood, and both barrels at the Samaritan Center brought to the event were full of cleaning supplies at the end of the day.
The church was very supportive. We definitely could have done it without our different pastors.
And I really admire their willingness to be a part of something to help those who are not in our immediate community. I feel like Southern supported me in this initiative by allowing it to be student-led. That's the biggest thing that I loved about being a part of this is it was completely up to Jen and I whatever we wanted to do, and the multiple departments on campus that supported us just supplied whatever we needed. I really admire Southern for not trying to take over our initiative, but just supporting us and providing whatever resources and means we needed to make this event happen.
It was just really incredible just to see the community, to see Southern just come and support us and uphold us really, and just turn our entire idea into an incredible one.
This young lady, who I know, no longer simply goes to church. She's allowed herself to be the church. As I've watched you all together, here together, for the brief time that we've been so honored to be with you, you have 2-3 dozen of the same caliber of young person in your church right now that are not content to simply go to church. They want to be the church. And if you allow it, if you allow yourself to be a growing young church, woo! Okay. If you allow yourself to be a growing young church, the 6-year-olds that want to sell lemonade to help hurricane victims are going to become the 16-year-olds that will want to change the world. And they will become the college graduates that will change the entire landscape of the world for the sake of the cause of Christ.
Amen.
That is the possibilities. And you have 3 dozen, 4 dozen, 5 dozen of them here in your vibrant community. And if the statistics are correct, you have hundreds of young people in your influence. If you allow them not to simply go to church, not simply attend worship services and meeting after meeting, but if you allow them to be the hands and feet of Jesus, even as simply as serving trail mix, it can change the world. Lord Jesus, even now, I want to thank you for each one of my friends here. I want to thank you for each one of my family members here that call themselves part of the worldwide family of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But we can no longer be satisfied with lovely programs and high Sabbaths and church retreats. We need to be about the ministry of the Master. We need to empower the next generation, and those of us that have wisdom and those of us that have experience and maturity, allow us, Lord God, please bring it to our awareness so that we would not get in the way. May there be a new wave, a revolution in the hearts of our young people here. Do not simply pass messages for the sake of telephone with a twist, but to send the message of the gospel that Jesus Christ came here, and what mattered most to him was to seek and save the lost. Finally, in this prayer, Lord God, I know as good and as high the potential is in this church, there are many of our young people that have faded away from church life for a variety of reasons. No matter where they are, Lord God, I ask and pray by the power of your Holy Spirit in the name of Jesus Christ that you will provoke them, that you will instill in them a desire to reconnect with their family. And if they should enter back into this fellowship, may you allow them to know that this is a place not only of forgiveness and acceptance, but also for empowerment and imagination, so that in their own ways they can change the world
and expand your kingdom. This is our prayer and our desire in your name.
Amen.
All God's people say.